understand that you said those findings were presented to you all on March 8th. Can you talk a little bit more about what the process of this decision has been from March 8th up until this point?
Right. On March 8th, we asked the law firm of Lewis Rice to join us in person to give us, because they told us that they were ready to disclose their findings. And we asked that they do that in person as opposed to a Zoom, because their preference was to do a Zoom call. And so they agreed to that, and they came up and shared all verbally, nothing in writing, but they read to us their findings, went through them, and gave us an opportunity to ask questions, seek clarification as we went through the process. And so after we completed that process, we asked them for that in writing. And so they were agreeable to do that. But in order to do that, that first session was with the executive committee of the board. So what we wanted to do was to make sure the full board had the same opportunity that the executive committee had to walk through this process. And so we did that. So they came back on March 14th and took the full board through the findings, both verbally, and they read basically what we thought was an outline of their report. We didn't get the full report until the evening of the 14th. On the 14th, they gave us the written report with all the attached exhibits. And so then on the 15th, that discussion on the 14th was robust. Again, 4 hours asking questions, seeking clarification, make sure we understand their findings. And so then on the 15th, we met as a board and we voted to reinstate Mosley based on those findings, because in the findings, there was no substantiation of bullying, denying ADA, FMLA, none of those allegations of denial were founded. And so once we went through the full board as it related to Dr. Mosley, we said, while there are some things that are pointed out in the report that we have to take particular attention to, that is the environment, the work environment, being a bit of a challenge, as well as the relationship between some of the senior leaders as they work through this highly intense environment. What's the word I'm looking for? We took the vote and decided that it was time to bring Mosley back. And so we did. And so today we announced, after that deliberation, we announced today that after much deliberation and discussion, that we voted to reinstate Mosley, and we did that effective today. And so today he's back in the duties of the presidency, and he's working with the staff as he transitions from off campus to on campus.
Okay, wow, so that's effective immediately.
Yes.
Then. Okay, wonderful. So I do have a couple questions for you based on what you had just mentioned. One is about, you just said working with staff, working to make sure that the relationship with Dr. Mosley is maintained as he's coming and transitioning back onto campus. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like? Is he talking with the Board of Curators constantly? Is that a relationship that, as he's being reintroduced to campus, that's constantly going on and growing, or are you all working with him at all right now?
Well, both things are occurring simultaneously, but the real purpose, the real focus of his attention will be working with the staff, his President's Advisory Council. He'll be chatting with them over the next couple of days as he works his way back on campus. He started to meet with them already, calling them, talking with them, and working through the plans that he has for re-entering the office of the presidency. So that's going to take place over the next couple of days, and soon he'll be back on campus.
And at this moment, do you know of any relationships that he is intending to build with students? Because, of course, as you've seen over the past several weeks, there's been plenty of protests. There's a lot of a lot of intensity that's going on there. So do you know anything about his plans to work and build relationships with students?
Well, it's important in his role that he has the relationship with the faculty, staff, and the students. Students being our number one customers. So absolutely, I expect that he will spend time with students. He will meet with them, start sharing, his vision for the university and the kind of plans that he has, the changes he's going to make. In this 8 weeks period of time, he's learned something. He's to figure out that there's some things that we're doing that probably we should change, or we should modify, or we should improve upon. There are some processes that have been pointed out as part of this investigation report that we need to take a look at. And those things, we'll be working with Dr. Mosley and his team to improve those processes. But yes, I expect fully that he will be spending time with students as he integrates himself back into the operation.
Sure, absolutely. And so stepping just away specifically from Dr. Mosley and just asking more generally about the investigation, to speak candidly, there's been a national outcry and outpour for Dr. Mosley's resignation, as you're aware.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure to the people that have called for that for these past several weeks, it can feel like the Board of Curators or the university may have simply just ignored the request that was going forward. Can you comment on that?
Well, we appreciate the support that the students, the alumni, have provided to Dr. Bailey and her family, giving their voice to her tragedy. It's a significant tragedy. We take it very seriously, and so therefore we appreciate what they've done in order to raise our sensitivity to the kind of issues that were outlined in her letter. And so that is not being ignored by any means. Even though we're making the decision we're making the decision based on facts, based on the investigation. I think had we all had the benefit of the information we've received, I think their reaction would have been different. But they didn't know. They took the letter and they ran with it in terms of how they expressed their concern. And as I said, we appreciate that because it highlighted the sense of urgency for us in terms of some areas that we need to take a closer look at that was pointed out in the investigation. And so therefore, we appreciate what they've done. But the one thing what must be clear is that the Board of Curators had no involvement other than selecting the investigation, the investigating firm, the Lewis Rice. They selected the people they interviewed. They did a search of all the critical documents, emails. They did a robust and exhaustive search to come to the conclusions that they reached relative to whether the allegations that have been presented were in fact true or not, and are substantiated. I mean, say not true, but are substantiated, and could not substantiate the allegations as it relates to Dr. Mosley bullying or denying accommodations requests.
Absolutely. And based on what you have just said, and based on what the Lewis and Rice group have presented to you all, I understand in the report that what you just mentioned, there was no findings of bullying or harassment or FMLA violation, anything of that sort.
That's correct, yeah.
What did they present to you all based on the interviews that they've done that made it seem as though that was not taking place? Because understandably, people that may have read Dr. Candia-Bailey's letter might have seen a completely opposite perspective. So
Sure.
What did they present to you all?
Well, I think the compelling aspect of it is that they spoke with 24 individuals. And in those 24 people that they spoke with, they did not find one person who indicated, or they said directly, Dr. Mosley had never bullied them, nor had they observed him being bullied. You had 24 people saying that, 19 of which were employees. Others, they interviewed the curators, and we, of course, we didn't see that. And then the last thing is they reviewed thousands of emails, and they couldn't find any emails from Dr. Mosley that he had bullied anyone. He looked at his emails to her and to others, and they could not find in any emails where they would classify his language or his behavior as bullying. So I think it was fairly conclusive when you look at all those three things about the fact that they came away saying no evidence of bullying.
Sure, absolutely. And so also based on your points there, based on specifically looking at the mental health, the FMLA request portion of that, understandably it seems like there was more of an outcry for those mental health resources. And I also understand that you all have stated that you're building those resources on Lincoln University's campus as well. Can you talk more about the mental health portion leading to more towards the end of Dr. Candia-Bailey's life, what they found and what they presented to you about her mental health issues there?
Well, as you know, mental health seems to be a big issue right now. I mean, when you listen to national news, like 25% of the people in the country are suffering from some level of mental health. I mean, it's really alarming what's going on. I don't know if that's associated with the pandemic and the COVID crisis that we experienced a couple of years ago, but it seems like mental health is really getting a lot of attention, and a lot of people are struggling with the mental health state. So Lincoln had the standard offerings, a couple of counselors on campus, and what's interesting about this, just knowing where the resources are does not necessarily mean that you're going to take advantage of them. In Dr. Bailey's case, she actually, the wellness center worked for her. And all the resources, the counselors, each student's ID card has a 1-8 number, call if you need help, if you're under stress. But the key thing is just not knowing where the resources are. You got to be able, we got to make it normal and acceptable for people to reach out and seek the help. And so in this case, individuals on our campus need to know where those resources are. So we've done a lot of work to ensure that people understand where their services are. We've even brought Compass Health on campus to help us with additional resources. And we have a committee that's working aggressively to make sure that our students have our employees have everything they need in relative to mental health support.
That's wonderful. Thank you for explaining more about that. So transitioning a little bit, I'd love to ask you, I think since I've been here and covering what's been going on, a really pivotal moment that I've seen was when student leaders were able to meet with you and other members of the Board of Curators to address their concerns there.
Right.
Can you talk more about, since that moment, the relationships that have been built with students, if you've been in contact with them, or just speaking with them or helping them deal with this grieving process so far?
I will simply say to you that that's still an opportunity area. I mean, we have been so busy over these last 8 weeks of trying to work our way through this process, let the investigation take its full course, and see what the results of those are. That the opportunity for us to spend more time with students, we committed to them in our one-on-ones with them, in our joint session with them. I think we had like 100 students in the room, and we had only 4 of them asking us questions, but there's a good number of students there interested in what was being said. We committed to them that we're going to spend more time with them. It's just we haven't had the opportunity to address that yet. We have on our board a student representative, but we got to go beyond that. Just the student representative addresses, brings to the board the concerns of the students. She works with the different student leaders on campus to gather their thoughts and their ideas to bring them to our attention. So this is the first time in a long while that we've had a student representative on the Board of Curators. I think it's over 5 years we've not had a student representative. So this year, for the first time, we have a student representative, but we need to do more than that. And so that's going to be our next step in terms of how to go forward, and so that it's natural that we engage with them, whether that's having lunch with them in the cafeteria or whether we just have regular chat sessions with them, but we need to do more.
Absolutely. And so something else that's, some people will be very interested in, I'm sure now that you all have made this announcement and all of this research is coming out, there's going to be a lot of negative pushback that's coming from that, especially from the people who initially expressed so many concerns. How do you, as a Board of Curators and just university, plan on dealing with that?
Well, that's a great question, and I think the only way to deal with it is deal with the facts. Although that won't always get us through the crisis or through the conversations that they are challenging us on. That's where we're going to lay our hat. We're going to stick to the facts. We have nothing to hide. As a matter of fact, we've written a letter to this. So you have a redacted version of the executive summary. We've submitted a request to the Missouri State's Attorney General saying, is there any reason why we can't release the entire report? Because we have absolutely nothing to hide. And we want people to know what was found, the good, bad, and the ugly. We could take some, we're pleased to find that Dr. Mosley didn't do these things that was being accused of. We're pleased that we didn't think he had, but we didn't know. And if he had, he wouldn't be our president anymore. We would have taken that action. We were firm in that position, and he understood that. So we're gonna deal with the facts. And if in fact we can release the entire report, we'd be happy to do so, because there's nothing to hide. So I think that's the only way you can try to move forward through these conversations, is you gotta have a common set of information that you're working from, that you believe to be true, and then we can have discussions about how to better the university going forward. What is the, how do we engage? And so we look forward to talking with key stakeholders as we go forward, because I know this is gonna come as, I think for the majority of people that support Lincoln University, they're gonna be very pleased with the report. But for those who don't support what we're doing, and I mean, 2 years ago, they didn't support President Mosley being announced as president. So we know that that's controversial. And some of the people that are still hanging on to that scenario are people that didn't like the idea of him being the president, 2 years ago. So they haven't pretty much not changed their mind. But hopefully with the facts, maybe we can move them forward. And then we should spend some time talking about all the good things this guy's done since he's been here. And there's a fairly healthy list of accomplishments that has taken place under his watch, and he needs to get credit for that.
Sure. And so I'd love to ask you, based on what you just said, you mentioned there have been people who from the beginning of Dr. Mosley's tenure as university president have not supported him being here. And to a lot of people, even just his presence is controversial on an HBCU campus.
Yes.
Can you talk more, just for background, about why you all decided to select Dr. Mosley as the university president, what attributes he brought to the table?
Well, this is a question we've had to ask about for 2 years now. It seems like at some point in time, we ought to move beyond this. But the fact of the matter is, when you look for the president, you look for all kinds of criteria. But race is not one of the considerations that you should be making as you look to appoint your leader of your university. You look for a person who can meet the needs of the university. And as we did the assessment, as we walked through this very robust process that was guided by an independent search firm who looked at over 150 people and narrowed it down to 3 that we eventually, as the Board of Curators, interviewed and voted upon. And Mosley came out as our choice with the person that had the skills we were looking for, the talents that we needed to take this university to the next level. That's the decision that was made. And so we believe it was a great choice then, and it's a great choice now. So some people like to say on a curator team, we didn't pick a black president, we didn't pick a white president, we picked the right president. And that's what we believe.
Sure. And so I had an opportunity to speak with the president of the Lincoln University Alumni Association, to which he said that he didn't really feel like there was an extensive relationship with the Board of Curators, or that they were really directly involved with a lot of decisions, leadership or otherwise, that were made here. Can you just talk about that and give your commentary and perspective on that?
Well, it'd be interesting if you'd walk around the Board of Curators and chatted with them, because we've invited the national president of the Alumni Association, Dr. Sherman Bond. We've invited him, I guarantee, over 20 times to come to our meeting, sit down with us, and share his concerns. Tell us what it is that's on his mind. What is it that you think that is so wrong about what's going on at this university? And what are the things, I'm sure there's some right things going on. What are those things? And how do we find common ground to address the things that you're concerned about? He hasn't accepted the invitation one time. So we invite him to come to the table. As a matter of fact, he has written a couple of books. I purchased books for every single curator and shared them with them. These are Dr. Sherman Bond's books. And this is a view into this individual and how he thinks and what's important to him. But we've tried to develop a relationship that's good for Lincoln University. We'd love to engage him and his team in dialogue to move the university forward. And we've made that offer a number of times.
Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it. And so my last couple of questions, they're very similar, but they deal with different portions of things. So first, Mr. Pasley, if you could just tell me if there's anything that you could say to the students, faculty, employees of Lincoln University as to how the university is going to move forward, what would it be?
Well, first of all, I got to say that this is a tragedy. This situation with Dr. Bailey is a tragedy that's going to be with us for the rest of Lincoln University. and we're gonna find a way to memorialize her on this campus. This lady graduated from Lincoln University. Dr. Bailey loved Lincoln University, and we want to honor that. It's just unfortunate that we had such a tragic end to her relationship with Lincoln University. So that's important, I would say, to the people that, and we're going to continue to work to move Lincoln University forward. We have determined or learned through this process that there's some things we have to do differently. There's some situations and processes that need to be clarified, make more public, more known to the entire organization. We've been working on these kinds of efforts for a couple of years now, but we need to intensify our efforts around that. And so we've gotten a lot of benefit, unfortunately, out of this very tragic situation that's been brought to our attention of things that we need to be focused on. We thought we had it in view, but we need to intensify our efforts.
And something that you had mentioned earlier, and you also just alluded to, was about in the findings some of the stress points that certain faculty or employees or maybe even students may have encountered. Can you talk or specify a little bit more about what those stress points were, how they were presented to you all?
Well, out of the 24 interviews, one of the findings was that the environment was highly stressed. Most of it has, in my opinion, there wasn't a lot of detail behind the fact that people express, they were working hard, they were doing all these things, and in many instances for a lot less pay than the marketplace provides. And so one of the things that we are aware of, and we've been aware of for a couple of years, is that the pay of our employees is not on par with the marketplace, not the Jefferson City marketplace, not the national marketplace. And we get so many of our employees from the mid-Missouri area. But we have to be intentional about employees coming to university that are fully qualified, capable of doing the job, and then pay them according to the marketplace. And that's an area we started working on. We did a study that took over a year to address this issue. We did a salary study to try to get that, and we started doing that. Last summer, we gave 75% of our employees 11% raise, and that began the process, but we got a long ways to go. So it isn't just about pay, it's about expectations, job descriptions that need to be updated, rules and regulations that need to be updated. We've been working all that, but we've got to intensify our efforts around that because that's where some of the stress on the environment comes from.
Absolutely. And lastly, I'd also love to ask you, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to directly speak with any family members of Dr. Bailey or how that communication has gone so far, but if you could just say anything, as I'm sure this may be a shock to her family members, that this reinstatement has happened, or they just generally may be concerned. If you could say anything to her family, what would it be?
Well, first of all, when it occurred, the next day I called them. I spoke with her husband and I spoke with her mother. And I expressed condolences from the Lincoln University family for their loss. And they were very appreciative. In that conversation, I asked them, would they mind if we did a memorial in honor of their daughter, and in this case, her husband, his wife, and they wholeheartedly supported that. And also, as we've gone through this announcement with the press releases, we sent them a letter as well, explaining to them what we were doing, so that they were fully knowledgeable of our actions, why we're taking these actions, and that if they had any additional questions or requests, we certainly would open to them, and we gave them a name and a contact person to follow up with us if they have additional questions. We did that today.